Hey guys, welcome. Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. Myself, Captain Travis, Captain Jason, Captain James. At the wheel, Captain Rick's up in Georgia doing windows, I think.
Yeah, he is.
No, I didn't know today.
So
I know
he's
maybe
up there.
He mentioned something last week. I didn't hear it, but
making the best of that. But we're here in the studio, guys, for an hour this evening. We're going to talk a little fishing. We're going to talk a little. We got some cool stuff coming up, some gear.
Yeah.
I think what we'll do is we'll kind of integrate over the next 2 shows or so, some cool stuff that, stocking stuffer type stuff.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Or some of these bigger items that are sort of, tested, if you will, or kind of definitely something you see.
Well, we've used everything we're
run out the shop
tonight.
Quite a bit. So by popular demand. But anyhow, like I said, guys, we're gonna do some fish talk and do some tips, and hopefully you guys got some questions. Get our
so our topic tonight, we're going to be doing. We really want to talk about cold weather fishing tips and tricks.
Yep.
What are we doing to stay warm, and what are we doing to get more fish on the end of the line? So that's really what we're going to talk about. We want to get some questions from you guys, after we cover our fishing reports and kind of what our game plan's been like lately. We really want to open that second segment up to you guys and find out, either comment on what's working for you or ask us what or talk to us about your challenges so we can try to help you out. But let's kick it off with the fishing reports. You were out yesterday. I was out yesterday. Jason was out today.
Yeah.
I canceled yesterday. You guys are brave.
Oh, yeah.
Well, again, if it wasn't for having a boat to be able to get out and do some different stuff, I probably would have been in the same boat because it was definitely really low tide, windy, cold. Bait I know was tough, and so we rolled the dice and went out in the skiff and caught a lot of trout. Saw a ton of fish. The water in the backcountry is real clear, especially when it drops out.
Sure.
One of the keys that we found is getting in those protected areas when it's windy, getting in those coves, getting in those areas that have got a lot of sun. These fish are wanting to get shallow and get up on these beds and kind of lay up. So that's sort of been one of the patterns that we've been following. And again, granted, having a boat to be able to get into some of those areas, especially on the South Shore, one of the things this time of year is, other areas like, say, down south when you get down into Charlotte Harbor, Bull Bay, Turtle Bay, Woodens Creek, or on the east side, you have the ability to get back into some depth, into some trees to get protected. On the South Shore of Tampa Bay, you really don't have a ton other than the river, a few places in Apollo Beach, and a few spots up north.
Or behind that first mangrove,
or
stretch.
To get behind that first mangrove stretch. And, one of the big things is a lot of people have trouble getting over the bar. You can't get to that area. So
I can't.
That's been a nice thing to be able to have that tool in our back pocket to be able to do. So plan on doing some skiff trips, fish yesterday, this morning, tomorrow, and then Thursday or Friday we'll do a skiff trip, and then we're back on the big boat on Saturday. So
cool.
Hopefully the weather permits. We got some sketchy weather coming up.
Friday's going to be tough.
I don't think Friday's going to happen. My the app's been wrong. It was showing 40-mile-an-hour gust.
Yeah.
I thought I had a trip on Friday, but I don't know what I did to my schedule. But
I've got some clients that booked like 2 months ago, and they just got to the resort.
Gotta
they called
make it happen.
I talked to them tonight on the way up here, and so we bounced some ideas around, and so worst comes to worst, we're going to get some shrimp and go fish some residential canals, or try to get the skiff back in some deeper ponds and catch some fish. So we're going to give it a shot, but it may be a little tough.
It's supposed to be raining too. It's a front line coming in, but
I didn't see a big temperature change with this one though. This is just going to be wind and rain, huh?
Yeah, I was on my imaginary trip. I was actually going to try to move it to Saturday because the winds are supposed to be 5 knots according to my app, but that makes absolutely no sense to me with the front moving through.
Right.
And so yeah, it's that time of year. We're getting pounded by fronts early this year.
Yeah, seems like it, man.
This is like January right now.
Yesterday, fishing all day was cold.
Yesterday was cold.
This morning was brutal. You fished it. What was your? I see you loaded up on bait.
This morning it was chilly.
Yeah, we got quite a bit of bait. It was It was a challenge. I had to pull some tricks out of the hat. I actually ran to the bridge this morning, and there was a bunch of guys there.
What's up, Manny?
And
how was the bait at the bridge? Why don't you give us the bridge
tough.
report?
It was tough.
It's tough up there.
There was some guys leaving. I don't think had some
I've-
guides.
and
leaving.
that's
I
been
don't
the
think they're
same-
baiting their well. I had
That
story
is-
for the last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
from what I understand.
Well,
Really,
There's
I
been
had
parts
to-
where it's
there's
been
bait
really
there.
good, like, but it's not staying. It's not consistent.
There's
And I'm
bait
seeing
there.
that local too.
Yeah.
It's just
The bait's there. I went deep because I kind of got a system when it gets this cold. Bait moves deep to the end, and I marked some stuff through. Loaded up on about 100 grunts, and they were big too. If it was going offshore, then money. Dumped them. Got my 5/8 mesh net. Threw it. Didn't get anything. I was like, if I ain't getting up with the 5/8, it ain't there. So we had to move around, and the tide started slowing about 10. And I whacked it one good time, and then I was chumming it up good. So I had to use give you guys some tips that I typically do. When it gets cold, the concrete holds heat. So get next to the pilings and throw your net on the pilings. Not on the pilings, but right next to it. And it'll also, if you got a ripping tide, you'll get an eddy by them pilings, which will slow down your chum. And you can also use the transom in the motor of your boat to do that. So we had to pull out some stops. There's a lot of guys not getting it, and I wasn't getting it.
And what you're saying is, and just to kind of clarify, but it's kind of a technique around bridges and structures to throw your chum literally right at that pole to where it more goes down.
Goes down
you get that eddy
instead of
current
sweeps away with the current.
instead of taking the chum pretty good.
And he
ways
talked
out,
about the
but
back of the transom. So if you're anchored up in an eye pile, you can drop it right where your motor's
right
mounted
where
to
your
the
motor's
boat,
at.
and it'll stay in that eddy as well, go down, and then when it sweeps under the current, it'll kind of reach that bait. So those are two ways.
It breaks that surface tension.
Yeah.
Anything that breaks that surface. We do it with tarpon fishing.
You got to slow your chum down to get the chum down, and the problem is when the tide's ripping, your chum stays on the surface and goes back. Well, when it's cold, the bait's deep. So you got to. There was not a lot. I did not mark a lot. I almost gave up. I said, let me try one more thing. I drifted through the spans, marked some, got behind the piling, started chumming. Big old ball came up. I threw. What I did like, I will say this, that I've been fishing with the smaller stuff, 1/4-inch net stuff.
Yeah.
Today I got some of that was just small enough not to gill in the 3/8, and I've been doing better on the smaller stuff.
Sure, me too.
And I've been catching, and I've been mainly fishing the river and some of the canals, a lot of redfish, smaller redfish, but we're catching more of a variety. So I think the smaller stuff helped. I was worried. I was like, man, I'm going to go to the bridge. I'm going to get that big stuff. But there is some bait there. It's worked. There's some bait at the markers. I had a trip. I fished Sunday through the rain. I can't believe I actually got that trip in. I left my house at slack tide.
You'll have to private message him for that, Manny.
Got the H.
Check your spelling.
But what was I saying?
You were fishing Sunday.
Saturday. So I live on a canal, so it's easier for me to go get bait, and I can pin it up this time of year. So about 9:30, I looked at the tides. I said, I need to buzz out there because there was some bait on some of the towers. Well, I got out there at slack tide, and I said, well, if I get there at slack, I can chum this stuff up. I'm going to have to throw a 1/4-inch net on it. 2 hours later, and about 30 throws later, I had 200 baits, and I had tweaked the muscle when I was sleeping on my back. I woke up and my neck was like this. I'm trying to throw a cast net. So it took me 2 hours to get 150 baits. So today I was like, you know what, I'm not doing that again. And we made the run to the bridge. But we actually caught Sunday. I picked up at 7. By 8 it was raining. Fished till 11. We caught 30, 40 fish. We had a lot of reds, a few trout, a bunch of snook. Bite was good through the crappy weather.
Nice.
Today I marked 55 degrees coming out of the Ruskin Inlet.
Yeah, I saw that on your video this morning.
Yeah, but it was 63 by the end of the day. So that's a good thing.
Yep.
Because my personal theory is 58 and lower is when you got to use shrimp.
Yeah.
And 58 or up is when they usually smack the whitebait pretty good. You just have to wait for it to warm up. So The fish I did catch today, I will tell you, I was fishing that extreme low tides. I was catching them in the middle of the creeks, dead in the middle.
Yeah.
It was real low tide, and you had to free spool a little bit. Luckily, I had some guys from Wisconsin today that I kind of could tell them what to do.
Yeah.
And I could tell them what to do, and they could actually do it. So it's I'm hoping next week. I got a guy that one of my repeats email. I don't have a trip next week, and then I'll get booked up around Christmas, but I'm hoping next week we hit a warm spell because all we need is like 4 days of warm.
Well, I saw coming up, and don't quote me on this, but I got excited because I didn't have a trip next week. My Tuesday trip canceled, and I saw a span of consistent like low 58, high 72, which I think this time of year when you get those stretches like that, everybody's in a good mood. You are, the bait is, the fish are, you're probably working with those water temperatures right around 63, 64, 65, which everybody can work with because, but I saw that going into next week that it looked like it was going to be that. Now I don't know how windy it's going to be. That's
nice.
the other
I don't have a
variable.
trip, so.
Yeah.
Let's go fish.
Yeah, I got plenty of stuff to do, but I'd like to pick up a few trips. This month's been extremely off for me. Last month was good business-wise, but I'm getting a lot of calls for Christmas and New Year, so I'll fill them that 2 weeks up. But the fishing's good right now. You just really have to fish around the fronts.
Mm-hmm. Well, you definitely got to play the cards you're dealt. Yesterday when I fished, where I was going to be in the direction of the wind and not having a trolling motor, you just have to take those variables.
I know that feeling very well.
Yeah. So
I can tell you this, that anybody looking to do a charter right now where they say we do all the work, you get all the glory. Dude, I left my house at like 8 to pick up at 10:45 to fish till 3.
mm-hmm.
I mean, if I was an average Joe, I would just say, and we caught a ton of fish. The effort that I have to put in, and you right now, to catch bait and do the trip right, is a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to summer, I would just book a charter. I really would. I mean, it's a lot of effort right now to be on top of the bait, and then be able to catch the bait because I got freaking 5 nets or 4 nets in my boat. I got almost every net mesh made right now because we got smaller bait. So I keep carrying my quarter, and then I was getting.
Then you got deep cold bait.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting that hog leg bait. Well, you saw me catching bait the other day.
I'd rather have the small stuff, but the small stuff
small stuff's working. In fact, when I saw you,
my trout, all of our bigger trout have all been on
bigger
bait. White baits and some of the nice reds that we've caught here.
Same here, but I'll echo that because that's where I was.
I'm saying that you can't catch fish on small bait, but
those trout. I mean, like I'm looking for the biggest bait I can get right now. I mean, they're happy. They're loving these low 60s. That's what I marked it at yesterday. I started the day at 62 at 7 a.m. and by the time I got off the water, it was 63.8.
Well,
so
tomorrow I'm going to run into some stuff that. Well, see, the problem I've had. There's some spots I want to get for trout and reds, and I can blow in there and then it drops off. But on the tides we've had, I'm not sure if I can blow in there.
Yeah.
So tomorrow I'm gonna hit.
I'll be there. I'll be there before you get there.
No, you ain't going. You ain't going. I know where you're going. You're not going there. But tomorrow we got that incoming. So once that tide shifts, I've got the river kind of down pat.
Yeah.
And I'll give you guys good information if you fish the Little Manatee. When it's going out by the railroad trestle, it's coming in at the mouth of the river.
Sure.
There's a 45 to an hour difference between that little stretch. So if I'll just keep it moving water. A lot of times I'll fish the backs all the way back in the river, all the way to the bottom of the tide, then I'll just run to the
fish
front.
with the tide.
So you just constantly have moving water. So I know that if I do that and I come in, I'll be hitting the top of that incoming.
Yeah.
I don't mind trying to blow in somewhere on the incoming because I know the water's coming in. But if you blow somewhere on the outgoing and you don't make it, it's only going to get worse. So it's the little stuff right now that makes a difference. The fishing is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's a lot of work. My recommendation to a lot of people is, with Christmas, all this stuff, do a fishing charter. Do it with anyone. You can get a hold of me at 813-727-9890. Mr. Beers fishes up by Tampa, Gandy area.
813-625-2067.
And Mr. Yaeckel's got like 8
The
boats
skiff,
you can
yeah.
fish out of. I mean, you take your
Are you
tent.
gonna start renting boats at all?
I've got 2, man.
He's like free. He's got
got
more
2.
boats than Freedom Boat Club.
Technically, so do I.
I've
So
got
give
2.
your
I've
number.
got 2 boats, man.
Just one more than I need.
So if you guys want to get out with me, it's 813-830-3474. You can go to my website www.fishbyinstinct.com.
Yeah, I've
Cool.
figured out we're pretty good at stuff. We're not very good at promoting ourselves on the show.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's
Step
all
it up.
good.
So you want to hear about my bait adventure? So I caught
Let's hear
bait, but not well. After I saw you Saturday, you knew I was having a bad day.
You were having a tough time.
Lost a trolling motor, lost a net, but we made it happen. We fished Saturday, off Sunday, and then I had to fish Tuesday. And with that wind, not having a trolling motor and everything I'd been through, I was like, I'm going to do something different. So I went out Monday night after my daughter's cheerleading practice, dropped her off, ate dinner, went back out and got some mangrove crabs, some little tiny mangrove crabs. I knew running around up there without a trolling motor and just with the clients that I had, I know they're not ready for long runs and chop or anything like crossing the bay from one side to another. So it's like we're going to stay on that same side. We're going to target sheep's head, go for the biggest sheep's head we can get. And those mangrove crabs were the ticket, man.
Do you have a you got a quick connect on yours?
Yeah, the trolling motor.
I had an extra trolling motor.
I mean, so do I, but it's not. All my
not
other ones have
cool
ring
enough.
No, all my other
It's
ones
not
have ring
cool enough.
terminals. This one has a plug that I've never seen before, and it was one trip. That's really how long I was down for, was Saturday's trip and yesterday's trip.
Yeah.
So I wasn't too worried about it.
I've sort of gotten used to it. I mean, you just kind of roll with it.
Yeah, you get used to it. It probably impacted me more catching bait than it did catching fish, to be honest with you, how I was fishing. But that's neither here nor there. But that's just something else. If you can get a good line, I mean, the sheep's head, the spawn hasn't even really happened yet, so I think it's going to continue to get better. But this colder weather turns that into a good option around docks, around structure. And that's what we did, is we ducked out of the wind because, I mean, it was howling in the upper bay yesterday. In fact,
It was
there
howling
was
across the whole
I
bay.
have never, ever in the years I've been fishing the Gandy boat ramp seen it as empty as I saw it yesterday.
I actually left my house. I went to the gym in the morning. I wake up, it wasn't blowing, and then I got back, and about 8 o'clock, I said, "All right, I'm going to make a run to get bait." I said, "Oh man!" I looked at the trees, and I said, "You got to be kidding me!" So I put it on plane. I got to the mouth of the river, and I seen white caps. So I stuck the power poles. I said, "I ain't doing this," because I've done that before trying to get bait. And it's dangerous. B, end up wrecking stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and
Things
and
break.
It's just I knew it was blowing out of the north, so the further south you run, it's only gonna get worse. And I was running south to get bait. I called the guy, and we actually ended up moving it to March. I like to run them, but
yeah,
and they were here for a few days. They just couldn't move it around. So
I put in a cockroach, and when I put in, there was one guy like fishing off the beach, and when I came back, he was gone. There was another guy, and that was it. There wasn't another trailer, another truck at cockroach yesterday at all.
Yeah, made it happen. We got some big sheeps. We got some sheep. We had 2 sheeps up to 20 inches. And then, 2 or 3 others that were like 17 to 19 inches. So for me right now, that's pretty good. I mean, I would say it's a pretty good sized sheep's head. And then a bunch of the smaller ones. We had the water was so cold. I think it came so quick. I saw a snook yesterday. This is just a funny story. We're sheep's head fishing, and I can look up in the mud, and the nose of my boat, how I'm positioned, probably 3 feet in front of me. It's 2 feet deep, and that's just the way my boat was angled. And there's a snook sitting there for like 5 minutes.
Just chilling.
Maybe 26, 27 inches, and I'm just looking at him.
He was trying to figure out how to get warm.
Yeah, he was trying to figure out a way to get warm. My client's like, "Hey, can we get any?" He happens to say, as I'm looking at the snook, "Think we'll get any snook today?" I was like, "Yeah, we could try. I had a few shrimp." I was like, "As a matter of fact, here, take this shrimp."
There.
I was like, "Drop it on him and see what happens." And he's like, "Where's it at?" And he didn't have polarized glasses. I was like, "Sitting right there. He's laying still. He hasn't moved in 5 minutes." I was like, "Maybe you bump it on the head, he'll eat it." Sure enough, he dropped it. Slow drops, taps him on the nose. Caught the fish 2 feet in front of the boat. So that was just a funny story, but yeah, I mean, that's what I mean is I'm saying that because if you're addicted to fishing, which you probably are if you're watching this show, you want to fish on Saturday or Sunday, and you don't want the weather to stop you. I was having a conversation with a lot of the people who came in the store today about that, and saying that don't get so caught up in the normal routine this time of year where I have to get bait, I have to get to my normal spots or whatever. I never went more than 5 minutes from the boat ramp yesterday. It wasn't safe with the people I had on my boat, and I didn't want to do it anyways. But you can make a plan, and you're probably a little more flexible. You can go to the right ramps, use artificials.
I mean,
change it up a little bit.
We caught just as many trout yesterday on artificials as we did probably shrimp.
There's a lot of times I'm thinking about when I'm on a trip and we're catching trout and it slows down a little bit, or you got to start moving around, bumping from hole to hole, and I'm like, just want to put that jig on, you know, or something. So start doing that a little bit more. But I know we got to take a break, guys. So let's do that before we get in our next segment, where we're going to take a little bit deeper dive. Hey, Jeff.
Guys, we'll be right back. Hang tight.
All right, we're back. Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. You know the drill. We got Travis all the way down there, Jason next to me, and myself. Before we jump into that next segment, though, Manny asked us a question about our chum mix and how we use that out there right now. So for me, I'll say I always typically start with that Purina base, you know, and don't really vary from that. I mean, if I can use that, that's what I need to use. But it's usually Purina. And if I'm on the flats, I don't really complicate things too much. I just mix a little bit of salt water. But there's different things you can add, Manny. I used to be really big on Jack Mac. And for me, growing up and fishing where I'd normally catch my bait at the Skyway Bridge, you know, when I was a weekend guy, I tended to use Jack Mac a lot there for the bridge. I feel like it works really well. Sometimes it'll even help the chum get down a little bit better. But I'll tell you now that where I'm at, if I'm adding something, it's usually not Jack Mac. It's usually a little bit of Menhaden oil. But I don't think that you need anything more than the Purina and the salt water. But there's things you can do to enhance it, or if you're having a hard time getting them to come to it, you can add things like that. So just want to touch on that. Make sure you knew we saw the question there, Manny. Bob's got a question for you. Oh, go ahead.
I always play with the sometimes I'll play with how thick or wet or dry I'll make the chum.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you want the bait to come to the surface, you want it to be a little drier.
Yeah.
If you got a heavy ripping current, a lot of times I'll get it really soupy and
muddy.
Then let it kind of dry out a little bit to where it's almost like a paste,
mm-hmm.
and then make little balls and let those balls get
mm-hmm.
down and then break up, you know, a few feet down below the surface. If you're throwing it right on the surface in heavy current,
yeah,
you're not really doing a whole lot.
No.
And then if it's a slack tide, then a lot of times I'll go a little drier to try to keep it on the surface and bring the bait up to me.
Right.
So just two little different things that I'll do.
Let it make a cloud up there.
This time of year, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's I used to be really into that at the bridge. It just seems like there's always, between tide, depth of bait, water temperature, so many variables that make you, make those changes. But hopefully we answered your question, Manny. But as always, you can always message us on if you want any more specifics on that.
Yeah, and then, Bob, I have not fished up at Mirror Bay, Apollo Beach too much lately, but I would suspect everything's going as planned. It should be good there. The trout fishing should be pretty good. There's plenty of snook. I fished up there a few weeks ago, did really well. Juvenile redfish, it should be good. I just haven't ran up there, hadn't had to. Been on some pretty good bites in the area closer to my area, and with the we have been I think we'll all agree that we have been basing our trips around the wind. Where I'm going to go here because of the wind.
Mm-hmm.
So we hadn't ventured out as much, and it's been going around the wind, but it's been very productive. But I haven't ran up that way because it's blowing out of the north 20 knots. It seems like every day I got a trip or raining or something of that nature. So, but it should be good up there. And not only there, but I'm sure Culbreth, there's a lot of muddy, old, dilapidated docks up there that I think are going to be holding fish. I don't even fish up there.
Yeah.
I don't fish up there, but I've went in there in the wintertime and done well, and I go fish the same areas in the spring or summer and just catch nothing but catfish.
Yeah.
So, which goes hand in hand with my dock.
Yeah.
You can go to my dock in the summer. There's like 100 catfish, and you're going to catch them every time. You go there now, and there's some pretty big snook. I'm starting to get some 30 inchers actually in my dock, but they get out of there during the summer. So, answer your question, Bob. It should be good. But any of them docks up there, I've got some really good stuff. And again, like today, I told these guys, I was like, the lower the tide, the better. I ran through some stuff today. I picked up at 10:30, and tide was low at like 11. And I liked it because I blew down some banks that the fish were just sunning up there, and I seen some big snook for tomorrow laying. So that where I don't even have to, I can blow by banks up in the river system, and I can scout it at 30 mile an hour because they're up there sunning.
Yeah.
And then it just drops straight off, so they'll sit right on that edge, and you can run them banks in a tower and just and you're not ain't like doing the flats.
You're not burning
stuff up, and they're gonna.
You're only running 25 though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Always.
30 would be
30 would be
5 too
over.
heavy. Yeah,
because my step tall runs perfect at 25.
yeah, sure does. All right,
but yeah. So Bob, there should be plenty of fish in there. Actually, I might run up there tomorrow. It's gonna be tough for me to leave because I've been doing pretty well. Today was a little off, but I told these guys, one thing, water temperature is so key. You go into these same areas when the water's 65. It's a big difference from 58, 56, 59 like we were today. I threw bat a chum out, not a whole lot of action. So guys, they're here, they're laying in the middle. What you need to do is be persistent. Throw them baits, free spool them, let them swim down. They're going to hit it. Sure enough, start picking snook off. And what it was, they're just laying on the bottom. They're not active because they're cold. So the key this time of year is reading your water temperature and knowing what to do. Like right now, it kind of goes against what Travis was doing, but he was also fishing out of a skiff. I typically like to target deeper areas when it gets cold because the temperature is going to hold steady. When you get on the flats, and you did well. But in my theory, when you get up on the
to clarify
flats,
that though, we weren't fishing in the real shallow water. We're fishing in the ponds.
Okay.
That you have to access
but even the
through
flats,
shallow water.
You have
Right.
to remember on the flats, there's going to be extreme dips and there's going to be extreme rises. So on the warmer days where the sun's beating down, you'll see a good jump. What I learned from going to the Snook Symposium is docks, canals, deeper areas like the rivers, they hold consistent temperature, and that's key for especially like snook. That's why they stage up in these canals and stuff. There's options where they can survive. So knowing that, you have to put that knowledge to work, and that's how I've basically been catching a lot of fish. But today they wasn't active. Like I threw some chum out, not expecting to hit it, and I seen a couple hits, but the chum was kind of to wake them up, like because I believe they, even if they're not hitting, they look up, they see something hitting the water, bait's going
it
nuts.
looks so good up there.
Yeah,
just
I don't want to
cold.
move. But what I didn't try today, I probably should have put some split shots on. I had some shrimp today too. I picked some up, and I thought I was almost going to have to use it. But I didn't use split shots today with the greenbacks, but we caught quite a bit of reds today. So not big, nothing big. I did get a couple bigger reds last week. So just watch that water temperature. It's key.
Yeah.
And the chum, I've been going through a ton of chum because the bait's just so tough. Like I think I'm going to use 2 bags this month. I'm not even close.
50-pound bags?
Yeah. Like I got 2-gallon,
Mm-hmm.
no, let's see, 1-gallon buckets that I keep full, and I've been going through at least one on my trip.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been dumping a lot of chum because it's just like the bait's just deep and it doesn't want to come up. But if you keep chumming, it seems like it'll eventually come up. But
The problem is too is that we get bait. We're trying to get bait and get rolling this time of year. 9:30, 10 o'clock is like.
But you don't want to leave
average,
at 6 because it's
but
40 degrees outside.
You can't catch bait. I mean, you can, but it really increases the.
The higher the sun gets right now.
Yeah, the higher the sun gets. I mean, like, I had a trip. I ran an afternoon trip about a week and a half ago, and I left at like 11:30. Rolled out there, little bit of sun, little clear sky. Pulled up, bait's just happy as all get out. Throw the net, do my deal. The very next day went to the same spot, and it's like a 2-hour adventure. You know what I mean? And so, but it's normal. I mean, it's nothing that we don't see this time of year. We sort of get spoiled by the fact that even the last 2 or 3 years we've really had a good bait situation.
Bait sucks.
And here 4 or 5 years ago, it was come come say December, we're going to the bridge to get bait.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to the bridge, or you were using micro stuff, or you're running way north and getting that big post spawn stuff that was sitting up, you know, by McKay Bay and all that stuff up there. But
well, this year we're getting down to more fronts, and it's getting colder faster. So I think
we had definitely a weird year as far as water quality and tides and winds.
Everything's different this year,
and
it's
weather,
not that it's bad,
you know, conditions. But anyway, it is what it is. The good thing is we haven't had any hurricanes, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna knock on wood on that one. But
I don't think we're gonna get one in December. Hopefully not.
No, I'm just saying, like this year, kind of reminiscent what took place this year. But
well, I had I will tell you this. I had an interesting call the other day, and I think the guy booked. I can't remember, but he was from Fort Myers, and he was asking me about dates, and he asked me about red tide. I got 3 calls, and they were all, "What's the red tide?" I'm like, "We have no red tide." I was like, "I throw a guarantee on my trips right now. If we have red tide, I don't charge you."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Yeah, it's finally starting to die off, you know, the talk about it." Well, he was in Fort Myers. He was telling me it's still on the beach pretty bad up there.
Certain areas, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't know that. I thought it was all kind of, because I think in our area it's kind of dissipated, you know, from the cooler temperatures. But so I thought it was interesting. Of course, he said the news is pounding it, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
But you know, as far, and I know you guys are throwing the same guarantee out there. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
when people were booking, they're worried about red tide, and rightfully so. If you're from out of town and looking to do a charter, Tampa Bay is good.
Yeah.
It has been.
It has been.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean, fishing
so-
the whole year for us.
I don't think I've been on a trip with somebody
That it didn't
where it
come up.
doesn't where it hasn't come up. Like how bad? Like, you know, usually the question is, how bad was it for you? You know, and fortunally,
The
wasn't
worst
bad.
was the media.
The media.
I always
I
tell
mean,
people the
it
worst
just
was
slowed
the media,
down. The
man.
fishing's been.
But
It's
to
a
their
good fishing.
defense, I mean, trust me, I
It
can't
needs
stand the media.
spotlight.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
catch-22,
It's not the
double-edged sword.
coverage; it's the way they cover it. They take the marina that's got 1,000 dead fish in it, and they replay that video. They did the same thing with oil spill. That pipe of spewing oil that looked horrible underwater. They replayed that video on like every.
I think
news
education is the key, though. I
Yeah.
mean, like there
Tell
are
the real
places that
story.
there are places that had marinas full of dead fish. There are places that, you know, were tragically affected by this year's red tide events, and that needs to be, you know, exposed.
Yes.
For lack of better terms. But if the media did a better job at educating and say, well, you know, it can be a very concentrated, you know, situation where, you know, from one key to the next key,
Mm-hmm.
it could be clean and, you know, and messed up and clean, you
Well,
know.
the media,
and
the media says
so,
what they want
but
to
the
say.
picture painted is Southwest Florida is decimated with red tide,
Right.
and that's just incorrect, and that's where some of that that you know, flack that we got is where it came from. You know,
Mhm.
instead of really educating the listener to what was going on. But that's here nor there. I definitely think, at least in my business, it's going to the wayside, at least till hopefully.
Yeah.
It's a conversation
a
on
year
the
or
phone
two.
that I've got to
So-
explain more than I'd like
Right.
still. But
Right.
it is what it is. Daryl, the sheep's head is right around the corner. There are some starting to show up.
Yeah.
Typically, I sheep's head for me.
Late January,
got-
February.
Yeah.
Well, actually, for me, the prime is February going into March is their spawn. For me, and I fish primarily deep water stuff. I don't do a lot of residential docks. I've got some ledges, some rock piles that are very productive. They're not as good as they used to. We used to catch some monsters, but so the ledges, based on my knowledge on fishing them, is actually February. One of the moons in February through the mid to end of March, you get that. You cut them open, they got roe on them. That's when you get the hogs. Come March, I leave sheep's head fishing.
Well, that's the
alone.
thing. Like I said, I know I'll start seeing them and start catching some of
Yeah.
the bigger ones like late January
Mm.
and then February. But depending on how our years are, heck, last year or this year, late February or mid-February, we were snook fishing in our
'Cause of the-
March and our spring snook spots.
Right.
I didn't even catch many sheep's head this year.
Reason
2018.
why I kind of narrowed that down
But,
all the way into March is because in 2010 we had one hell of a snook kill, and we had temperatures that we see in January and all the way into the end of March, and me and Danny and Rick, we all had to go do something different. You didn't catch snook. I mean, and when you did catch them, these fish look anorexic, like
Yeah.
eyeballs popping on their head. So, and we didn't have white bait because, matter of fact, I know because I blew my knee out playing softball, and I ran trips with a torn meniscus, and kind of thankfully there wasn't bait around because I used shrimp because I couldn't throw a net. But we did a lot more sheepshead fishing. It
The
was
black
funny.
drum fires up
Black
too.
drum.
That's
It
another
was
one
caught-
that
we
falls
caught-
in. It falls right in that
Yeah,
same
I think you
time.
actually fished with Danny back in them days with your previous.
We fished. Yeah, we fished a few
employment.
runs on the black drum,
Yep.
and then just historically that bar, and then up north, it was always really good for black drum. The further north I went, it was always more of a crab bite. When you got
Mhm.
out front, it was more jigs and shrimp. But
Yep.
the up north bite was a little more crab. But
Crabby.
anyhow,
The
Definitely crabby.
you know what's funny is it's funny looking back and sitting here thinking of my log in my head is the day when we had the snook issues had developed from 2010. We had phenomenal trout spawns, a lot of big trout, and I'm not talking shallow water trout. I'm talking deeper stuff. I remember me and Danny were going out there and just wrecking the trout, and that stuff in them spawning areas, the hard bottom, not on the shallows. That's all that stuff is not. I mean, there's trout there, but not like we were even talking. We're like, man, there was days we went out there and we're wrecking like 25 inches. I'm talking like, and all that pressure was put on trout because the snook fishing was horrible.
Sure.
And in the wintertime, the red fishing was not that great.
Yeah.
And now our trout fishery as a whole is not. I mean, I remember going out there and just going, this is unbelievable.
Mm.
So I just wonder if the extra pressure back then. But I mean, there's still some good trout fishing. But I remember going back and just, it's funny how things work out. We depended on them trout, and then, like you said, the black drum and the sheephead.
I think everything. I think there's sort of a, for lack of a better term, a natural selection process that takes place where, when one species sort of falls,
It's an opportunity.
another one's gonna
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
Nature
it's
takes
just-
care of itself.
It's just the way that it's gonna work.
Yeah.
And I think it all boils down to having good water.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why I think that Captains for Clean Water and that whole initiative, and we just talked about red tide and exposure and all that stuff. If we don't start with our water quality and our
Right.
systems and everything, that's not even going to be able to take place.
There's
even
enough-
when we
when man,
species,
when
issues.
nature takes
so
care of itself, with the problem I see sometimes is when man comes in and does stuff.
Compounds
alter
it.
Well,
Well,
now how does that work out? Because nature's going to do its thing. Hurricanes come,
hard winters.
the hard winters come, and that's nature. But when man starts doing stuff, whether it's building, whether it's the issues of red tide,
Runoff.
fertilizer,
Mhm.
runoff, like how does nature take care of that? Because it's already got enough on its, nature's got enough going on to try to.
you just have to believe
Well,
in the process and
yeah,
hope that the
I mean-
process works.
It does.
I mean,
but
that's what we
have
have
to-
environmental engineers
And
and,
that
all them other
and
guys
this
for.
and then
You gotta sorta,
these fish are resilient, man. I
yeah.
mean,
I'll tell you what.
the will to survive
Yeah.
in any living organism is
Well, you
is
can't
insane.
you can't let money, and it's hard. It's easy for me to say this, but money controls a little too much. And so I went down to Fort Lauderdale about 4 years ago, and I did a Mercury, had what they call a Mercury Edge experience. Great event. They had pro guys run Yamaha and Mercury, and customers got on the boat and yada yada. But when I was there, I got there and I hadn't been to Fort Lauderdale. Ton of money. I mean, ton of money. They got a marina that's 4 stories high because they can't. Every square inch is built out.
yeah.
And
Oh,
I'm in the intercoastal running a 24-foot Boston Whaler. There's like 4-footers from yachts.
Yeah.
But it was, and I got it. Like I talked to the local, and I said, man, every house, what's the average? She's like, oh, they're like cheap ones, $4 or $5 mil. That's great, but when you looked across, if you were a fisherman or anybody that likes outdoors, you step back and look, you're like, this is kind of ridiculous. It looked like them shelves sitting there just stacked, like
Mhm.
just too much going on. It's like, at what point didn't somebody say, maybe we should leave a mangrove line here or there?
Yeah.
So I think we have to be careful with that stuff. We gotta,
Yeah,
it's
no
gotta
doubt.
I mean, we gotta. People want to live on the water and do stuff. I live on the water, but you have to leave some stuff around for for nature. So
Sure.
um,
Well, we
Guys,
got
that leads us in. I think what we'll do is we'll run into a break, guys.
yeah. We
and
got some
then
foul weather gear and
We got
stuff.
some foul weather gear coming up, so let's kind of energize the third segment. I think we ought to do top 3 cold water tips for this time of year. We'll
Yeah.
all march those off,
Uh-huh.
and then we'll talk about some cool products that we've
Yeah.
got set out here for you guys that are Christmas shopping or maybe just looking to get that goodie for yourself, guys.
Good deal.
Stay tuned. You're watching Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report, and we'll be right back.
Saying yes to our guys and girls.
I gotta bring us in.
Yeah.
Welcome
He
back,
did it. I
guys.
did it. Your turn.
That's
All
it.
right. So welcome back.
That's it, that's
We
it.
took him by surprise.
All right, we got him. But all right, guys. Well, again, thanks
Right
for
there.
joining us. If you just logging on or you're just tuning into the show, we've talked a little bit about some of the different things that we've been doing
Mm-hmm.
on our charters. I think it all alludes to sort of fishing around these low tides,
Sure.
sort of fishing around these cold fronts, and maybe some things that we do to be successful on days that most people really wouldn't choose to go out. I mean, we're sort of forced on some level to, no matter what, take somebody out, have a good time, and hopefully offer them a trip of a lifetime at any dot on the calendar.
Right.
And so I think first and foremost is read your weather, know what's coming up, know what your tides look like, and most importantly, know the area that you're going to fish.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the one thing that we will, as a guide, sort of subconsciously do. I already know where I'm going tomorrow, or at least for my
Your
first
plan
move
is, yeah.
I've got sort of a game plan based on tide, based on wind direction, based on water temperature, based on the bait that I'm going to be using, and sort of the areas that I want to target. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
a few things that I like to do, or maybe some tips that we can offer up to somebody that's going to go out and fish this time of year is, number one is slow down. Slow your roll. Summertime fishing can be a little bit more, speedy. You're hitting spots. You're
Right.
hitting tides. You're hitting.
All right, guys, it's not happening. Let's go.
That's just bump and run, bump and run. One of the nice things, and I'll fall back again, is having a boat that I can get back to the shallow water this time of
We're
year.
so tired of hearing about it.
I know.
No, I'm just kidding.
but one of the things that it does do is it allows you to be able to see more fish.
Yeah.
When you're fishing deeper water, when you're sort of choked down to some of these deeper canals and creeks and channel areas, you can't necessarily see all the way to the bottom. But if you can get to the shallow areas where the water's clear, you can actually see where the fish are and sort of stage up. And so in knowing that, I like to slow fish those areas. I know the fish are there. I've already seen them. I've visually, verified there's fish there, and so we'll kind of slow down and fish. So that would be my first key, is just sort of slow your roll, not only with how fast you fish an area, but how fast you fish your bait.
Yeah.
Let the bait sit. Let the bait work.
Especially in the artificial realm.
Especially in the artificial realm, you're really going to want to drag those baits and make sure those fish have plenty enough time to react. They're not going to be as reactive under these cold conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Second, to be lighten everything up. On every rod that I've got, I have nothing more than 20-pound test right now.
Yeah.
On all my charter rods.
Leader?
Leader.
Yeah.
Leader.
Right.
I'm still using a 10-pound main line, and then I'm down to a 20-pound leader. Depending on the conditions, there's some really clear areas, like clear sandy potholes that we like to fish this time of year. If I can get to those that are out on the flats and it's really clear, I'll drop down to 15.
I had to
for
do
trout,
that lately.
For trout.
Yep.
Outside of that, for the snook, I really don't drop down to 15 or even the redfish, but when I'm trout fishing, definitely can make a difference in that clear water where those fish are laying in sand. And the third thing I would say is don't be afraid to try something different.
Sure.
This is the time of year where sort of anything goes. The fish from 1 minute to the next can want a cut bait, a live bait, a fast bait, a slow bait, a top water, a bottom bait, and so this is the time of year where I sort of load up my artificial, arsenal, along with trying to have, some live bait and even the shrimp. So don't be afraid to switch it up.
Sure.
There's times, even when it's cold, even if we've got live bait, whether it's shrimp or greenbacks, the artificial baits will get the job done a lot better.
And in many times outperform.
And one of the things over the years I think particularly as guiding and not fishing as much, is the baits don't act the same. When it's cold, you throw a greenback out there.
Yeah.
He's not the same as you know, when he feels good. I mean, how many times have you netted up bait over the last few days in your live well, and you look at your white baits and they're just kind of like they're just kind of flopping around. I'll sort of play off of that and go, well, the bait in itself isn't really that active, so odds are the fish aren't. So just some little things, and those maybe 3 points off the top of my head that I would bring up maybe this time of year that we try to do to be successful.
Sure.
So,
you know, you definitely touched on 3 good ones. One thing I've done, I think I've done our seminar here at the store the last couple of years when we talk about wintertime fishing. And a question that comes up a lot is, well, how do you know the difference between this dock and that dock? And if I'm in an area that I don't know very well, when we're talking about, we touched on the bait holding heat around the pilings. Well, there's other features that hold heat, like the dock piling or bridge piling can hold heat, but also dark mud can hold heat. Oysters can hold heat. Even a mangrove shoreline can hold heat if the roots are, you know, out there enough. So when
clear white sand
on
high sun,
right, and high sun, you know, get in shallow water, let it heat up quicker. So the one thing I've told people over the years when they're going into like these residential areas that they don't spend a lot of time in, and they're just trying to get out of the wind, is how do I pick and choose? And if you put me in an area that I'd never been before, I'd be looking for the most abundant of those features, or multiple features combined. If I can get into a dock that is really dark mud with oysters, an oyster bar lining it, then that's what I want to find. So if you're in an area like that and you're just not sure, you're like, oh, looks like we're going dock fishing today, and then for the first 5 minutes you can't really figure out where to fish, start looking at those features that you know hold heat and work those. So
what about mullet? Is that something that you'll kind of pay attention to?
Absolutely. I mean, if I'm seeing mullets,
that's a big one for me.
Yeah, especially the behavior of the mullet too. I was talking to somebody about that yesterday. Is first thing in the morning, we had to get done by a certain time. People need to get a flight, and I was like, the whole time I'm thinking, well, 8 o'clock is going to not be so great, but 10 o'clock should be good. You should have seen the activity of the mullet changing there. So yes, definitely mullet. Them being there is a good sign. Them being active is an even better sign. So I'll touch on that. I really think a big one is overlining. Is you have to be careful of it. I know you touched on it, but I think it's really, really important that you put yourself in that position, because if you are going to be fishing out front in the clear grass flats when the winds and temperatures allow you to do that, you've got to make sure that you're matching the clarity of that water to your tackle. If you're still on 30-pound leader trying to trout fish, especially with a shrimp and a cork, odds are they're going to see it. I mean, it's crystal clear out there right now in most of these areas, so definitely underscaling that line. And you talked about working your baits slow on these flats with the temperature conditions. I also think it's important, if you're going to be in your boat, work your boat slow. Is a lot of times these fish aren't moving and they're not giving you as many of the signals that they're there that they might in the fall and summer, where redfish V's or whatever.
And clear water casts shadows a lot further, especially guys with towers and T-tops. I noticed that, clear water fishing a lot is there's a lot of things that you don't necessarily consider when you think about clear water.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to sort of take into consideration when approaching a spot, fishing a spot, where to set up, things like that you can really sometimes make a difference in how successful you are.
Favorite 20-pound leader brand, Kenny? I'm not too big on it. For me, leader, when it comes to that class of leader, 20-pound, for me it's about how clear is it. That's the number one thing for me. I'm not looking for abrasion resistance really or break strength.
I'm going to throw something out here. I'm using 40-pound leader and catching fish. I'm not fishing the flats, but I'm going to tell you what brand I'm using. Brand y'all sell, O'Hero.
O'Hero.
Do some research. Look at a 30-pound traditional fluorocarbon and look at a 30-pound O'Hero. The 30-pound O'Hero is thinner than the 30-pound traditional brand. So what I found is that the 40 is almost like a 35. I've been using that for because I ran out of 30 and I've just been lazy, and I'm still using 40 and I'm still catching fish with it. So actually tonight before I leave, I need to get a spool of 30, which is going to be like a 25. With that being said, the O'Hero leader is really good leader.
100% fluoro.
Yeah, it works really good.
That's what I've been using.
They sell the 200-yard spools.
That's the thing I like about it is I can get in bulk, you know, because I'm never going to be in a situation where I don't need 20-pound leader. That's 120 and 30 you need. You need a lot of it.
So I've been using the 40 this year. I've never used 40 for leader, and I can't say that it's – the only thing it's done is help me out on bigger fish, and I don't have to cut the phrase as much.
We'll scratch what Travis and I said. I'm just kidding.
Well, no, because you're also fishing.
We're talking about that different situation.
You're fishing different areas.
I've been fishing some real clear water, and even though the water in the river has been tannic, been real tannic.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the fish are getting up on the edges, you know what I mean? But the river is sort of an X factor sometimes.
Same with docks, too. You can almost think about it like docks.
The throw out there, I've been using this since August. So the water was clear, and I was fishing the flats and having an issue. I haven't fished it lately in the flats, but I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm just saying that
maybe that's just a testament to how good that leader brand is.
Maybe it's the popping corks.
I don't have popping corks tied up.
Yeah.
I don't. The water's for me is too clear. I might tie some tomorrow, but
like Joseph said, in that front water, that's been a difference maker. I sat on fish, they would not eat. I went to 15, they ate. But I'm talking about clear water, like
I will tell you on that leader. It says 30. I'm not sure if it's the same strength. I can tell you the diameter's different. I'd like to actually do a test. I don't know how we would do that.
Break strength test.
Yeah.
Just got to get a knot breaking machine.
Yeah. If we could do a knot break to see if it actually is 30, that would be the true testament because it could be 25.
Well, and I don't know how they rate leaders. I mean, because you have a shock strength. And you have a tensile strength.
Well, you would probably go tensile.
So I measure it by diameter. I look at the diameter. The diameter is what I look at on them, and because
well, leaders kind of like rods. They're all different.
Yeah, they're all different.
So
you go and look at 80, like when it gets tarpon season and everybody's buying 60 and 80, the differences between one brand and the next in the diameter of their 80 and the workability, like tying knots and everything, is so much different.
The thing I like about those 100%. Heroes
there's some soft, there's some hard.
40, if you compare the 40s, the 40's smaller. I don't know what the breaking point is, but to me, the Hero 40 is like a 35, which they don't make.
Right.
So it's somewhere in between 30 and 40, and the 30 is somewhere between 20.
Yes.
20 and 30, so it's kind of in between. And I kind of like I like it, but I'm still throwing the 40. I have not fished gin clear water a ton, but I haven't had any issues. Yeah. So if you don't get bit, you downsize. That's from tarpon fishing. I mean, I've been out there with 40-pound test on a day I'm not getting bit.
Yeah.
And I know that if I fly a fish,
it's not
going to work. But if I put them in the air, it's a hooked fish.
Hey, they catch them on fly rods all the time, man. With
20-pound class.
20-pound, 40-pound tippet, man. They're
I have yet
all
to
over
hook one on 40.
But
I've done it on 50. 40.
I have. I've hooked them on 40.
Yeah.
But
they've made a fool of me.
It's not fun because
But yeah, Kenny, that's the question. That's what we'd all probably agree on here. Go with the O'Hero. Well, you guys ready to talk some?
Let's talk some outerwear. And that's so professional, James. I mean, the outerwear.
Outerwear.
We were gonna say jackets, but
well, start with the boots, man. Because
start with the boots.
For me, there's nothing worse than wet feet.
I'll let you guys lay into those. You got a men and a women's.
Yeah. You guys have all probably seen these, but we're talking about Christmas time gifts and stuff like that. This is a product that's been around for a couple of years now, but people still are discovering it.
Boots?
No, this particular boot.
Travis actually turned me on to these.
I think when we talk about boots, everyone thinks the white boots, right? The old school white boots, royal boots,
probably
and
the
stuff.
worst ones to get.
Well, they're functional. They're just not comfortable.
They're somewhat dangerous.
Yeah.
They don't have the soles.
They don't have the grip.
They don't have the grip. And
that's
in the cold water.
I'm trying to show you the key here. And matter of fact, I have some on at this moment that are 2 years old that still look good. Like I'm still using them. But this grip, this inserts here, grip the deck of a boat or any wet surface so well compared to any other sandal, shoe, or anything I've used. This right here grips, and Extra Tough hit a home run. Now they're offering all kinds of products with water shoes, flip-flops. But this right here, in addition to keeping it dry, is what's most important. Because the last thing in the winter when you're in nasty stuff, catching bait by yourself, is get a slip and go in the water.
And this company, Extra Tough, because I had somebody ask me, I got these right when they first came out. Yeah. I was wearing the old Shimano Evair boots. Was the one, they were very similar. But I went to these, and I remember first couple trips, and a guy asked me about those boots, and I said, oh, they're new. And I didn't even know like sort of the story
history
behind
of Extra Tough brand.
And it's not a new brand. This isn't their first boot. This isn't their flagship.
No,
product.
The Legacy series is the
right.
The
I mean,
stuff.
the Alaskan Crabber dudes. I mean, this stuff is been tested and kind of put through the battlefield on a level that Tampa Bay will never see.
Yeah.
And so not necessarily this particular boot, but the brand itself and the company. And so I think you even touched on either the quality. Like I haven't ripped a pair, and I'm normally pretty hard on boots and stuff. But having these little flanges here to be able to get your foot in these, and to have this elastic here around your ankle really makes a difference putting them things on and off.
And then the other thing they have that's different is they have that express cool like neoprene inside. So like if you're gonna wear this in the summer in the warmer months, it's not gonna overheat you. I mean, I tend to wear flip flops, but
I have a pair of these. I'm gonna give you, not sponsored. I bought them through here. Yeah. They're good boots. The quality is great. One of the big things that if you see here, they're a mid top to low top boot, and they're very easy to slip on. Boots can be a pain to get off and on. Downside for me, the only downside, they're not the most comfortable boot inside, and I'm kind of flat-footed, so that I'll probably notice it more than most. That's why I'm curious. You were talking about the Sims boots. I will tell you a brand that I don't even know if you carry that I used to get, but they have the taller. They're just a regular boot, and they're white, but Rugged Shark makes a really comfortable boot that I used to use. I do like these better because in the early summer months, when I have shorts, I'll slip these on because I wear tennis shoes, and I don't want to get my shoes wet.
Right.
These are very easy to get on and off the boat. So
kick them right on, kick them right off.
They could step it up a little bit on the comfort part inside, but again, I'm
a tip on that is after the first year wearing it, my sole wore out. Dude, I put a Dr. Scholl's in there.
So I was gonna exactly.
I'm wearing them right now.
Yeah,
because it was cold this morning.
Yeah, so that's cool. Yeah. And what's the price? I think they're $80.
So they retail at $79 for a solid color, $89 for the camo color that we had on there. And there's men's and women's. And I mean, they have women's colors, men's colors. I think we stock 3 women's colors and 4 men's colors.
I will say I have a pair that is a year old. They're worn out. They're still not leaking. The soles are worn.
Yeah.
And they're dry rotting, but they're still. I'm probably gonna get through this winter.
My second pair in 2 years.
Yeah.
I finally bought another pair the other day.
If I get a year out of something and I'm 200.
Yeah, you got to be happy for that price.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So they're all around good boots. I just change them out, and put my tennis shoes on after I'm throwing them.
Yeah.
So that'll keep your feet warm, and then I'll let James go over these, and I guess I can cover these because I've been wearing this
we're sticking to what we've got in the store, right? It seems like a huge topic lately has been coat, bibs, jackets, what's keeping you dry, what's keeping you warm, what's breathable. So we figured we kind of go through some options, and we'll start with more of like a fleeced sweater. This is more like a sweatshirt. So think about this like your normal hoodie. The difference is it's a soft shell coating on it, right?
After you catch bait, you're going out artificial, you're scouting, that's the type of gear you're going to want for that.
And what this will do, like say it's an early morning run and you got that mist or that fog, this is DWR, so it's water repellent. It's not waterproof.
It's not what you want to wear when you're getting poured on.
This is not this is not rain gear, but this is good wintertime gear. It's fleece lined inside, so it's super warm.
Yeah, a lot of times there's a lot of moisture in the air. You get kind of cold and damp even though it's not raining.
The other nice part about this, windproof. So that is the one thing it will cut. Is most hoodies won't cut wind. This one will. It's awesome. It's super functional. One of the coolest parts about this is the sleeve is like narrow tapered, right? So with your normal hoodie, for what we do, you're in your bait well all day long, and it's natural for me to not use the net a lot. I start to put my hands in there. This is very tight around the cuff. Instead of having this style cuff, it's just narrow, and I can pull it up, and it'll fix there a little bit better without being comfortable. And if this is a different material, if it gets wet, it doesn't ride up. The moisture in this shirt or in a sweater, you put in your well, you might dip that much in. A minute later, that's how wet you are. This material doesn't absorb water, so it won't ride up you. So I thought that was cool. Something that Sims thinks about that not a lot of other companies.
Is that a Sims brand?
That's a Sims brand.
And what kind of price are we looking at on something
hoodie
like that?
That's $129, which I think is a fair price. I've got one from last year that I'm still running with, but I do like the new colors and stuff they came out with.
It does seem like Sims does put some good. Everything they release.
They do,
good.
And the one thing I can say about them is every single year, twice a year, they reach out to every guide, every person who fishes in their products, and says, how can we make it better? And I've seen them listen.
Make changes.
Make changes to it. I've seen their products develop over time.
Huge, 'cause a lot of
This was
companies
something,
don't do
this
that.
particular thing about your sleeves in the bait well came from Florida.
We're going to
people.
talk about that in a second when we get to this. But
Yep. All right, so the next one is, so now we're stepping up into more of a rain waterproof product, right? So this is the Simms Challenger jacket, which is an outerwear product. It's a rain jacket. This is something that you can wear, throw in the cast net, layer it underneath it. It's waterproof. Now, it's waterproof to an extent, right? There is a point at which this is going to get so soaked it'll go through. Odds are you're typically not going to reach that point. It's going to have to be some extreme cast netting or some extreme downpour. But for the most part, what's nice about this is it's all season. You know, you could wear this all summer long.
It's light enough to not get you super hot, but you know,
oh well, yeah, it's totally
enough
breathable.
to keep you warm.
This will you know, in the summertime not overheat you like if some of the other products we're going to talk about that aren't breathable. That's one of the nice features. For me, what I found this product to be best for is really cold days wearing something underneath it. It cuts the wind. It cuts any water. It's super comfortable. And when it does start to warm up by like noon, you're not feeling it. So I like this product a lot. $199 for a garment here. They have matching bibs to go with these. If you're not somebody who throws the cast net 20 times a morning, this is it. I mean, it's awesome.
And then we get into the real stuff.
The hardcore.
The
commercial grade.
The more the commercial grade type stuff. I'll let you hang on to that one. This is the one, there was a post that was made or a comment made not too long ago where a guy was asking about Grundens, and, you know, there was a lot of Grundens fans out there. I'm not sponsored by Grundens, but I can tell you that
anybody is here.
I can tell you that I've got two full sets.
Yeah.
So I've got the Hercules and I've got the Petrus, this white one here. And both of them do what I bought them for. Let's put it that way. You know, this one here, the nice thing about Grundens is that it keeps you dry.
Yeah.
This type of Grundens
100% waterproof.
will keep you dry. I use the lighter stuff. I'll wear a sweatshirt underneath it. You saw me the other morning. I had a sweatshirt and some long pants under my bibs and this, and I was just fine. On those extreme cold days, I wear my Hercules. It's a little bit thicker.
Heavier.
I think it's a 40 mil or whatever they call it, thickness. And that in itself will keep you warm. That's like a pair of shorts and a sweatshirt under the top jacket. But this is good stuff and relatively inexpensive for what you're getting.
$89
This is gear that lasts year after year. I mean, I'm on like 2 years on my Hercules and a year now on the white Petra stuff. But the only thing I will say is the buttons. You know, watch the buttons. You're definitely going to want to, if you're a guy that's going to use this in salt water and throw it in a hatch, curl it up, make sure once a week or a couple weeks you throw some cleanse oil on these snaps and keep those lubricated, because if they get bound up, what will happen is the material's so thin that when you go to pull out the snap's tighter than the material, and it'll actually pull it through the fabric or this material.
Another button.
So this one doesn't have a button, but before I let James talk about that one, I do want to talk about the Hercules, and I don't know if you guys carry them.
Next door we do.
Well, the one that I'm going to talk about, they make a jacket. They make a Hercules jacket. It's a pullover, and it has neoprene cuffs on it. I don't know if you've seen that one, but that's the Hercules jacket that I wear. And let me tell you what,
pullover, Hercules.
The best rain, foul weather jacket
it will not leak through.
You will buy. And you were talking about putting your hand in a live well. When I have those really cold days, I put my pullover on, and it's got the neoprene cuffs. I can reach to the bottom of my live well and pull my hand out and never get wet. Because those neoprene cuffs will keep the water out. You know, so
because they're building that stuff for the crabbers who are in 50-knot winds, sideways rain that you're sitting here working and rain is coming up in your jacket this way.
A lot of people I see, they've got the Hercules jacket, that's similar to this, no cuffs, but they do make a jacket. It's the pullover that has the neoprene cuffs. So if you're going to get one, check that one out.
I got the overalls in the Petrus, and James, you actually turned me on to that. The best bibs by far that I've bought, because the problem with the thicker ones, to me they're annoying.
They're thick.
They're dry. They're thick.
They're heavy.
You're wearing like a weight jacket or something So I would recommend them, guys. I will tell you real quick what I do. Like today, that works good for me, and you can stay with the thinner stuff, is I actually have I got a couple sets of Columbia under, and it don't have to be Columbia. I was using them because I have them under ski gear. So when it's super cold, I put my under ski gear on, and then I just put my regular pants on, which I usually, just fishing pants, and then I'll put a sweater on, and then I put my gear over that, and like today I was pretty warm, so, and then a beanie.
Yeah.
So,
that's what me.
It's great. The under ski gear, it actually holds the heat of your body, because I hate being cold.
Yeah.
And it's by far the best thing I've found is having a set of under.
There's
under
nothing
ski
worse than having cold, being cold, but having cold.
I think they are probably a stainless material. It's not really the material. They don't rust. It has nothing to do with rust, but what it has to do is build up, because all that water sort of gets accumulated on these buttons, especially when they're wet.
Yeah.
And you end up getting dried salt and corrosion that'll get in there, and it hangs the button up. So that's the biggest problem with that. And then these are what, 89?
89 a pop.
89 a pop. That's for 89 for a jacket, and then 89 for the matching bib. So for less than $200, if you're one of those guys, I recommend getting the Grundon's whole setup. That's 100%. What I've got. So
turn my mic up just then.
Good deal.
But,
you want me to talk about the yellow one?
Yeah, talk about what's the difference.
Well, it's the same. It's just a different color.
Okay. Well,
I just had to mess with you. No, but
you always got something up your sleeve, dude. I mean,
whoa. So the difference, though, between, like, if we compare this Grundon's, they're all these are great products that we would all have a use for, but the main difference between the Grundon's and the Sims is Sims makes a breathable, feels great to wear. This is a no-frill. This is a, like, hard work, this is your blue-collar stuff.
Too.
It does stretch.
A commercial grade.
This is PVC.
Right.
This is PVC. This is breathable. This doesn't breathe. This does. This will never soak through. This will eventually soak through. But that's not to say it doesn't have its good use. But we could talk about that stuff all night. We all love these products. Use them every day.
Tampa Fishing Outfitters, that's another thing. If you're looking,
my recommendation, best bang for the buck, the Petrus. If it's going to be cheaper, it's going to keep you dry. Just depends on what you want to do. If you want to walk down the dock and be warm, maybe the Sims.
But if you're a guy who fishes artificials, this ain't for you.
No.
You don't want to wear that. You want to wear this.
The Sims. The Sims stuff is good if you don't want to throw the net and all that. But a lot of times when we do, the Grundon's going to cut it. So
cool. Well, good deal. Any of that stuff you can get at Tampa Fishing Outfitters. We've got all the boots in stock. We just re-upped. I mean, we sell so many of those during the holidays.
I bet.
We cannot keep them in stock, and Extra Tough came through for us. I think we sold 6 pairs of those today.
Nice.
So
nice.
We've
How
got
many Yeti buckets?
Yeti buckets, we're doing pretty good. Those boater buckets have been working good, man.
Nice. Rick, you hear that?
Rick,
we'll get you one lined up, buddy. Guys, we appreciate you joining us for another hour of Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. Hope you have a good week, tight lines, and we will see you next week, same place, same time. Talk a little fishing.
All right, good.